Thanks for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Wendy Griffith. Today, Israel awaiting the results of its unprecedented strike on Hamas leaders in the country of Qatar. We'll bring you the story on the attack and the reaction to it from Jerusalem. Plus, the rising tensions between the Trump administration and Venezuela as the U.S. is building up its military presence in the Caribbean to fight the international drug trade. And our Studio 5 conversation with singer and songwriter Jordan G Welch as she tells us about her worship culture tour. And a strong box office opening this weekend for a new animated movie about the life of Jesus called Light of the World. These stories and much more today on NewsWatch.
This is CBN News Watch.
And we begin in the Middle East, where they're dealing with the fallout after targeting the top leadership of Hamas in an unprecedented strike on Qatar. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, some believe the attack could help bring an end to the war in Gaza.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended the attack on the Hamas leadership Tuesday afternoon.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th.
He said Israel acted alone.
On this day, as in previous days, Israel acted wholly independently, and we take full responsibility for this action. And this action can open the door to an end of the war in Gaza.
Qatar condemned the attack.
The Israeli attack that took place on Qatari soil can only be described as a state terrorism carried out by someone like Netanyahu within the context of these systematic policies and his ongoing attempts to destabilize regional security and stability. This is a clear message to the entire region.
President Trump says he's very unhappy about the attack. Like Israel, Qatar is a U.S. ally, which hosts America's largest military base in the Middle East. In a carefully worded statement, the White House called it an unfortunate incident.
Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said President Trump spoke with both Israeli and Qatari leaders, agreeing with Netanyahu on the need for peace and assuring Qatar an attack won't happen on their soil again. How many Hamas leaders have been eliminated is still being determined. The terror group claims its top leaders survived the attack, but Israel has yet to make an announcement. The attack comes as Israel is poised to take over Hamas's last remaining stronghold, Gaza City. It remains to be seen what impact this will have on Hamas in Gaza and if this leads to an end of the war and freedom for the remaining hostages. Middle East expert Eugene Kontorovich told CBN News the attack was justified.
This is the beginning of true justice for the October 7th attacks. The people who were killed in today's attacks are the top brass of Hamas. They're the people who organized, who authorized the October 7th attack. They are the Adolf Hitler, let's say, of the Islamo-fascist regime of Hamas. And finally, they're being called to account.
Despite the Trump administration's protest, Kontorovich believes the U.S. gave the green light, and that shouldn't come as a surprise.
It's only a surprise because we're still not used to taking President Trump at his word. He said yesterday there needs to be a complete end of the war. There needs to be a release of all the hostages. Hamas needs to stop with its excuses. This is his last ultimatum. There'll be consequences.
Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, what a news day it was yesterday. How does Israel believe this strike in Qatar could lead to the end of the war in Gaza?
Yeah, Wendy, a stunning news day yesterday. One thing they think it could lead to the end of the war is that it may demoralize the leaders in Gaza and lead to the takeover of Gaza City and perhaps an end to the war. Perhaps, and this is a real hope for many here in Israel, that perhaps freeing of the hostages. Netanyahu did say in his speech last night that they had agreed to the U.S. proposal, and then the war could end if Hamas finally accepts those ceasefire deals, if Hamas agreed to them. But right now, it's certainly a defining moment for Israel. It was a strategic ultimatum. You know, Wendy, this is probably the fourth time they have targeted leadership in the Middle East. That would include Hezbollah in Beirut, that would include Iran and Tehran, the Houthis in Yemen, and also the Hamas leadership in Gaza. Just an amazing effort by Israel to defeat all its enemies that at one time, 2 years ago, had surrounded them.
Yeah, there's no place to hide anymore. But why were the Hamas leaders in Qatar? Do we know?
Well, Qatar had been sheltering these leaders for probably since 2012. There is a man that we've interviewed many times, Yigal Karman. He follows Qatar on memory.org, and he says Qatar is Hamas and Hamas is Qatar. They have a long-term relationship. Qatar has been funding Hamas over the years up to almost $2 billion. During the reign of Hamas in Gaza, they were giving them, Hamas, $30 million a month for their administration. Hamas's top leader, his name is Khaled Mashal, and others, they were all the masterminds of October 7th. By the way, worth billions, Wendy, and this is this incestuous relationship between Hamas and Qatar.
So what do we know about the success of this strike in terms of actually taking out some of their major leaders, Hamas leaders?
Well, right now it's unclear, Wendy, and ever since this attack was announced or took place yesterday afternoon, it's unclear whether or not it succeeded to eliminate the top leaders. It seems the longer it goes, Israel may be feeling that it failed to eliminate the top leaders. There is pretty certainty that there were 5 lower-ranking members that were killed. And we have, the timing is very interesting, Wendy, because it seems like President Trump, when he found out about it, he told to Steve Witkoff, his lead negotiator, to tell Qatar. Now, whether or not that was in time for Qatar to warn the leaders to get out of wherever they were meeting. There's also a report I saw just a few minutes ago that maybe Turkish intelligence gave the warning sign to Hamas leaders. So very interesting timing of what was going on yesterday, and unclear if what happened yesterday really succeeded in what Israel wanted to do. And just let me add, you know, about Qatar, you know, their political headquarters was there in Doha, and Qatar, many people believe, is not only the arsonist that helped fuel Hamas, but also the firemen by being in these negotiations for nearly 2 years right now.
Wow. Well, President Trump, as you know, did express his displeasure over this attack, but he supports, as you mentioned, eliminating the leadership of Hamas. So what is the reaction in Israel to Trump's statement?
Well, officially, Netanyahu and other ministers portrayed the strike as both justified and strategically aligned with Israel's broader war. Interesting last night, Wendy, the Prime Minister Netanyahu was with Ambassador Huckabee. That was at Israel celebrating, or here in Jerusalem, the U.S. Embassy was celebrating the 249th anniversary of America's birth, basically celebrating July 4th. The reason for the rescheduling is that on July 4th, there was a 12-day war with Iran, so they had to reschedule it. But he was here last night with Ambassador Huckabee. So I think the relationship between the U.S. And Israel is still good, but certainly a delicate balancing act between two allies, both Israel and Qatar.
And Chris, how will this affect Israel's relationships with other Middle Eastern countries and Europe?
Well, many people right now are just condemning Israel. That would include Jordan and Egypt, in UAE and others. It's to be expected by many of these countries to do so publicly, but also perhaps privately be thankful that they did. Remember that Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is an enemy of many of these nations in the Middle East, including Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and some of the Gulf countries. So privately, they may be thankful that Israel at least attempted, but publicly they're condemning it. And as well, you would expect many of the European nations, as well as the EU, is condemning Israel's action. But we'll see what happens as things unfold, and we learn more about what happened there in Doha.
We will indeed. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell. Chris, thank you so much for your insights. We appreciate it. And we look forward to hearing from you again in the days ahead. Coming up, President Trump building up the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean as he tries to crack down on drugs coming out of Venezuela, leading to growing tensions between the two countries. We'll bring you that story when we come back. Well, the United States building up its military presence in the Caribbean, putting pressure on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Washington accusing his government of fueling the drug trade, and a parallel dispute with neighboring Guyana over oil-rich territory is adding fuel to the fire. Chuck Holton brings us this story.
Just this year, the U.S. Coast Guard has seized almost $500 million worth of cocaine off the coast of Venezuela, and the Trump administration has gone on the offensive. In recent weeks, the U.S. military deployed 8 warships, surveillance planes, a nuclear submarine, and 10 stealth fighters to the region. Last week, the U.S. struck a suspected smuggling vessel, killing 11 in a mission authorized directly by the president. Officials say the surge is part of an aggressive counter-narcotics campaign.
Billions of dollars of drugs are pouring out of Venezuela and other countries. Venezuela has been a very bad actor, and we understand that.
Maduro's government denies the charges and insists the drug war is being used as a reason to destabilize his government.
Venezuela is not a relevant country in terms of drug trafficking and in all related matters. So this lie is as crude and false as the claim that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction.
Maduro has mobilized millions of militia members and warned Venezuela could declare a republic in arms if attacked. Venezuelan fighter jets have twice buzzed U.S. Navy ships in international waters. The U.S. commanders say any further threats could be met with force. Another facet to this conflict is playing out here in Guyana. Venezuela's tiny neighbor has been under threat as Venezuela claims sovereignty over approximately 2/3 of the country, along with massive offshore oil reserves. One key in this conflict is the U.S. has major business interests here, with ExxonMobil and other companies developing huge new fields. Washington's security posture may also be aimed at deterring Venezuelan moves against Guyana.
Venezuela doesn't even have any roads that connect it to its neighbor to the east here in Guyana. And the border dispute between the two countries was supposed to have been settled more than 100 years ago. Venezuela never really made much of a fuss about it until 11 billion barrels of oil was discovered offshore. And now Venezuela wants to take over an area of Guyana about the size of Florida. And that's why when Secretary of State Marco Rubio came here in March, he made it very clear to the Venezuelan government, keep your hands off.
There will be consequences for adventurism. There will be consequences for aggressive actions because you have a very difficult challenge on your hands with a dictator that's making illegitimate territorial claims.
Pressed on whether the U.S. would back Guyana militarily, Rubio left little doubt.
It would be a very bad day for the Venezuelan regime if they were to attack Guyana or attack ExxonMobil or anything like it. It would be a very bad day, a very bad week for them.
The Trump administration has a $50 million bounty on Maduro. So while U.S. officials frame the buildup as counter-narcotics, the sheer firepower deployed raises questions whether Washington is preparing to go beyond interdiction and possibly move to oust Nicolas Maduro from power. For certain, the stakes are rising. Whether this confrontation stops at drug enforcement or escalates into regime change may depend on Maduro's next move. From Georgetown, Guyana, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Thank you, Chuck. Still ahead, our Studio 5 conversation with singer and songwriter Jordan G Welch on her love for worship and the Worship Culture Tour. We'll hear from her right after this. Welcome back to CBN News Watch. Jordan G Welch is a chemical engineer and now a Stellar Award-nominated singer and songwriter. She also has a passion for worship, and she's now on the Worship Culture Tour. Ephraim Graham brings us the story.
We give you all the glory. We give you all the honor. We give you all the worship, Jesus.
I guess we'll start at the beginning. So is it Pittsburgh, born and raised? When did you know you had a voice?
I was in the car, or the van. Minivans were a thing back then. And I'm just listening to a song and singing along with it. And my mom was like, "Jordan, is that you?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You're really good." Now, mind you, at this point, I'm listening to her sing all over the place. So for her to say that was like, oh, yay, okay, like something's there. And I just kind of kept cultivating it. They started letting me in the choirs they were forcing me to, sit in rehearsals with. And I just kept it growing, and she kept affirming it, so, yeah.
So what happened that made you say, okay, music is front and center?
I couldn't do that and work at the same time. They both had gotten to a point where there was more demand. I kept coming to a crossroads. Like, literally, it seemed like every few years it was going to be, all right, which one do I choose? I took a sabbatical from my day job that I've been doing for 14 years anyway, and said, let's see what happens.
And hearing that story, that kind of speaks to the first single we heard, I think it was 2012, Obedience.
Yes. I can't believe how far we've come from that. Yes, how ironic, because that's the first song.
Yeah.
And now, when I think back over all of those years, it's not that I was being disobedient, but at what point was I willing to be 100% obedient into what he was calling me into, be it ministry, music, whatever have you. And so, yeah, it's going how it started.
Yeah, and it requires faith. I mean, you don't know what the next step was.
No, I do not. Like, I didn't anticipate this. You don't really know what's going to take shape and how. And now it's like, okay, the Lord he's disproving theories that man put in place, especially as an independent artist. I don't have a label. I don't have major backing. It's just me and the Lord.
You and the Lord, with Open the Eyes of My Heart, get more than 10 million video views and 11 million audio streams. There are signed artists wishing they had those numbers.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart.
Ephraim, we put that video out to kind of help promote the live recording. But I had been putting videos out all the time before then. And I woke up to someone snagging a clip of it and posting it without me even knowing. And I get hundreds of notifications. But I'm stunned. I'm like, what's happening? I see it, and I said, oh my Lord. This is months after the video had already been posted.
So what are your prayers when this is happening?
Lord, keep my mind and my heart on you, because I'm also starting to get the testimonies of what the song is doing. People are telling me that they were attempting suicide and they heard the song and they stopped, or they were having such a hard time with grief, or they completely walked away from the faith, or they're not in the faith at all, and they hear the song and it is telling them that God has his eyes on them. What do you do with that except to point it back to God?
Hallelujah. Amen.
So you do the One Live in Atlanta album. That also surpasses 11 million streams, more than 6 million YouTube views. Tell me, what was your thought in prepping for that project? What were you doing?
I told the team, I told everybody who was behind the scenes, I said, listen, this is going to be a night of worship that happens to be recorded. The only focus, the only thing we need to be doing is making sure this room is filled with people who are hungry for God in a way that he will respond in a way that they'll never forget. And I even told the camera crew, don't be so in the way that they take their minds off of what God is doing and they start looking at you and thinking about what you're doing and what you're capturing. And the Lord answered every single one of those prayers favorably.
So let's lift up holy hands.
Wow, I love how real she is. Well, Jordan has written a 30-day devotional that connects scriptures to the songs she's sharing. For more on her book and her music and her tour, you can check out jordiegmusic.com, jordiegmusic.com. And tonight on a special edition of Studio 5, a one-on-one conversation with recording artist Major, the Hope Dealer, shares a closer look at his personal life and musical journey. You can catch the special edition on the News Channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Well, coming up, a strong box office opening for a new animated movie about the life, crucifixion, and resurrection of Jesus. We'll have that story when we come back. An uplifting animated movie about the life of Jesus finished in the top 10 at the box office in its opening weekend. Light of the World landed in the number 9 slot, earning more than $2.4 million. The 2D animated movie shares the story of Jesus as told through his friend, the Apostle John. It features Jesus' ministry, his crucifixion, and resurrection. The movie presents an unconventional perspective on John and those closest to Jesus. It's supported by research from biblical historians who suggest that some of the disciples may have been teenagers when they began following him. And you can find out more about this film and how you can see it on CBNnews.com. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with CBNnews.com. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen today. You can email us at newswatch@cbn.com or reach out on social media. We hope you'll join us next time. From all of us here at CBN, have a great day and God bless.